The morning sun barely touched the old elementary school when Marcus Thompson arrived for his shift. He was 72 years old, with hands that had cleaned these hallways for 37 years. His gray hair was always neat under his faded cap, and his brown uniform hung loose on his thin frame. Nobody really noticed Marcus anymore. He was just part of the building, like the walls or the old water fountain that never worked right. But on this cold Tuesday morning in November, something would happen that would change not just his life, but the life of a 9-year-old boy who desperately needed someone to care. Marcus pushed his cleaning cart down the empty hallway, the wheels squeaking softly. The school was quiet at 6 in the morning, just the way he liked it. No children running, no teachers rushing, just him and the familiar smell of floor wax and chalk dust. He had already cleaned the cafeteria and was heading to the classrooms when he noticed something strange. The old mailbox near the principal's office, the one nobody used anymore since everything went digital, had a small white envelope sticking out. Marcus stopped and stared at it. That mailbox had been empty for at least 5 years. He pulled out the envelope with his weathered hands. On the front, in careful child's handwriting, were the words, "To anyone who will listen." Marcus looked around the empty hallway, then slowly opened the envelope. Inside was a letter written on lined notebook paper, the kind kids use for spelling tests. The handwriting was neat, but shaky, like someone trying very hard to write perfectly while their hand trembled. The letter read, "My name is Oliver. I am 9 years old, and I am in Mrs. Garcia's 3rd grade class. I don't know who will read this, but I hope someone does. I need help, but I don't know who to ask. My mom works 3 jobs, and she's always tired. My dad left when I was 5 and never came back. We live in our car now because we lost our apartment last month. Mom parks behind the grocery store at night so nobody sees us. I'm so cold at night and hungry in the morning. I try not to cry because it makes Mom sad. She already cries when she thinks I'm sleeping. I love school because it's warm and there's food at lunch. But I'm scared someone will find out about the car and take me away from Mom. She's trying so hard. She really is. I just wanted someone to know. Maybe you can't help, but at least someone knows now. Thank you for reading this. Oliver Martinez, room 12. Marcus had to sit down on the nearest bench. His chest felt tight and his eyes burned with tears he hadn't shed in years. He read the letter again, then once more, each word cutting deeper into his heart. He thought about his own grandson, safe and warm in his bed across town. He thought about all the children who passed him in these halls every day, and wondered how many carried secrets like Oliver's. Marcus folded the letter carefully and put it in his shirt pocket, close to his heart. He knew what he had to do. First, he needed to find this Oliver Martinez without making him scared or embarrassed. The boy trusted someone enough to write this letter, and Marcus wouldn't break that trust. He finished his morning cleaning routine, but his mind was on that letter. When the school day started and children began filling the halls, Marcus paid attention in a way he hadn't in years. He watched for a boy who might look tired, whose clothes might be a little too wrinkled, who might eat his lunch like it was the most important meal of the day. At lunchtime, Marcus walked slowly through the cafeteria, emptying trash cans and wiping tables. Then he saw him, a small boy with dark hair and brown eyes, sitting alone at the end of a table. His clothes were clean but wrinkled, like they'd been slept in. He ate his school lunch slowly, savoring every bite, and Marcus noticed him carefully wrap his cookie in a napkin and put it in his pocket. That was Oliver. Marcus was sure of it. The boy looked up and caught Marcus watching him. Instead of looking away, Marcus gave him a small smile and a little wave. Oliver hesitated, then waved back shyly. Marcus didn't approach him then. He needed a plan. That afternoon, after school ended, and most everyone had gone home, Marcus was sweeping near room 12 when he saw Oliver sitting on the steps outside, his backpack beside him. The boy was clearly waiting for something, or someone. Marcus walked over slowly, his broom in hand. "Afternoon, young man," he said gently. Oliver looked up. "Hi, Mr. Marcus," he said. Marcus was surprised the boy knew his name. Most kids didn't. "You know who I am?" Marcus asked, sitting down on the steps a comfortable distance away. "You're the one who makes our school clean and nice," Oliver said. "My teacher says we should always thank you, but I'm too shy." Marcus felt his heart warm. "Well, thank you for saying that now." They sat quietly for a moment, watching cars pass by on the street. Then Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a small bag. "I brought too many sandwiches for lunch today," he said casually. "Peanut butter and jelly. Would you like one? I hate to waste food." Oliver's eyes widened, and Marcus saw hunger flash across his face before the boy tried to hide it. "Are you?" "Sure," Oliver asked quietly. "I'm very sure," Marcus said, handing him the sandwich. Oliver unwrapped it carefully and took a small bite, then another, trying not to eat too fast. Marcus pretended to sweep the steps while the boy ate. "You know," Marcus said after a while, "I found something interesting today. A letter in that old mailbox. Nobody uses that mailbox anymore, but someone very brave put a letter there." Oliver stopped eating and looked at Marcus with wide, frightened eyes. "You're not in trouble," Marcus said quickly. "Not at all. I think whoever wrote that letter is very brave and very smart. They knew they needed help and found a way to ask for it. That takes courage." Oliver's eyes filled with tears. "You won't tell anyone. They'll take me away from my mom." Marcus moved a little closer and spoke softly. "I won't do anything that separates you from your mom, I promise. But I want to help, if you'll let me." The tears spilled over and ran down Oliver's cheeks. "We tried so hard," he whispered. "Mom works all the time, but it's never enough. Everything costs so much money. She skips meals so I can eat. She gives me her jacket at night so I'm warmer. She's the best mom in the world, but everyone looks at us like we're bad people because we don't have a home." Marcus felt his own tears coming. "You're not bad people. Sometimes life is just hard, and it's not fair. But you don't have to go through this alone anymore." Over the next few days, Marcus put his plan into action. He had lived simply all his life, and had saved more money than anyone would guess a janitor could save. He also knew people, lots of people, from nearly 4 decades of working at the school. First, he talked to Mrs. Chen, who ran the local food bank. She arranged for a random selection that would provide Oliver's family with a week of groceries, delivered to the school for pickup by the winner. Then he spoke with Father Miguel at the church 3 blocks away. The church had a program that helped families in crisis, but they needed to know who needed help. Father Miguel understood the need for discretion and dignity. Next, Marcus approached Mr. Johnson, who owned several rental properties in town. One of his apartments had just become available, a small but clean 2-bedroom place. Marcus offered to pay the security deposit and first month's rent, calling it an investment in the community. Mr. Johnson, whose own children had gone through this school, agreed to reduce the rent and waive the usual credit check. But Marcus knew he couldn't just hand these things to Oliver's mother. She had pride, and pride was sometimes all people had left. So he got creative. A week after finding the letter, Marcus waited near the grocery store, where Oliver said they parked at night. It was cold, and the wind cut through his jacket. Around 8 o'clock, an old sedan pulled into the back corner of the lot. Marcus could see 2 figures inside. He walked over slowly, making sure his footsteps were loud enough to be heard. He didn't want to scare them. When he knocked gently on the window, a woman's frightened face appeared. She was young, maybe 30, with Oliver's same dark hair and tired eyes. "Ma'am, I'm Marcus Thompson. I work at Oliver's school," he said, holding up his school ID badge. "Your son isn't in any trouble. In fact, he's a wonderful boy." but I'd like to talk to you, if you have a moment. Oliver's face appeared next to his mother's, and when he saw Marcus, he smiled. It's okay, Mom. This is Mr. Marcus. He's nice. The woman rolled down the window a few inches. What's this about? She asked, her voice cautious. Marcus took a deep breath. Ma'am, I know things are hard right now, and I know you're doing everything you can for your boy. Nobody's judging you. But winter's coming, and there are people who want to help, if you'll let them. The woman's eyes filled with tears, but she held them back. We don't take charity, she said with quiet dignity. It's not charity, Marcus said gently. It's community. It's people looking out for each other. Your son wrote a very brave letter, asking for help, not for himself, but because he was worried about you. He loves you so much, ma'am. He told me you're the best mom in the world. Now the tears did fall, streaming down her face. Oliver reached over and held his mother's hand. There's an apartment available, Marcus continued. The landlord needs someone to help maintain the property. Small things like keeping the walkways clean and watching the place. In exchange, the rent is very affordable. It's not charity, it's a job. And the church has a program that helps with security deposits for working families. You pay it back when you can. No interest, no pressure. The woman, whose name was Alina, looked at her son, then back at Marcus. Why? She whispered. Why would you do this for strangers? Marcus smiled, softly. Because 37 years ago, I was sleeping in my car with my daughter after my wife died, and I lost everything to medical bills. A janitor at her school helped us the same way I'm trying to help you. He told me that someday I'd pass it on. Today is that day. Alina broke down completely then, sobbing with relief and exhaustion and gratitude. Oliver hugged his mother tight, and Marcus stood there in the cold parking lot, remembering his own dark nights and the kindness of strangers. Within 2 weeks, Oliver and Alina had moved into the apartment. It was small but clean, with heat that worked and windows that locked. Alina kept her 3 jobs, but was able to cut back hours at one because the rent was manageable. Oliver had his own bed for the first time in months, and a desk where he could do homework. Marcus helped them move in, bringing boxes of extra things from his garage that happened to be exactly what they needed. Dishes, towels, blankets, and even a small TV. The church's food program made sure their refrigerator stayed full while Alina got back on her feet. But the biggest change was in Oliver. The tired, worried look left his eyes. He smiled more, laughed more, and his grades improved. He still ate lunch like every bite mattered, but now it was because he enjoyed it, not because he was desperate. One day, about a month after they'd moved into the apartment, Oliver found Marcus cleaning the hallway after school. Mr. Marcus, he said, I want to show you something. He pulled out a paper from his backpack. It was a test, marked with a big red A+ at the top. I couldn't concentrate before because I was always worried, Oliver explained, but now I can. Think better. My teacher says I'm doing great. Marcus looked at the test, then at the bright-eyed boy in front of him. I'm proud of you, Oliver, but you were always smart. You just needed a chance to show it. Oliver hugged Marcus then, quickly and fiercely, before running off to meet his mother. Marcus stood in the hallway, holding his mop, feeling richer than any millionaire. But the story doesn't end there. Word spread quietly through the school about what Marcus had done. Teachers began to pay more attention to signs of struggle in their students. Parents started contributing to a new emergency fund for families in crisis. The old mailbox that had held Oliver's letter became a symbol, and the principal officially designated it as a place where students could leave notes if they needed help. Marcus found letters there regularly now. Some were about hunger, some about fear, some about loneliness. He couldn't solve every problem, but he made sure every letter got the attention it deserved. He connected children with counselors, families with resources, and most importantly, He made sure every child who wrote a letter knew that someone cared. Alina found better work within 6 months, a job with regular hours and benefits. She insisted on paying Marcus back for everything, but he refused money. Instead, she volunteered at the school, helping other families navigate the system when they faced hard times. She became part of the network of care that Marcus had started with one simple act of kindness. Oliver grew stronger and more confident with each passing month. He joined the school reading club and discovered a love for stories. He made friends who came to his apartment for homework sessions and video games. He learned to ride a bike in the apartment complex's parking lot, with Marcus teaching him on weekends. As spring arrived, Oliver wrote another letter. This time he gave it directly to Marcus. It read, "Dear Mr. Marcus, you saved us. Not just from the cold or from being hungry, but from feeling alone and forgotten. Mom smiles now when she comes home from work. She sings in the shower. She doesn't cry at night anymore, and I'm not scared anymore. I used to be scared all the time, scared that things would get worse, scared that Mom would get sick from working too much, scared that nobody cared about kids like me, but you cared. You didn't just read my letter and feel sorry for us. You did something. You changed our whole life. Mom says that angels don't always have wings. Sometimes they have mops and kind smiles. I think she's right. Thank you for being our angel. Love, Oliver. P.S. When I grow up, I want to be like you. Not a janitor though, that's a good job, but someone who helps people when they need it most." Marcus kept that letter in his wallet, next to a picture of his own daughter and grandchildren. He looked at it whenever he had hard days, which janitors have plenty of bait, reminded him that every person who seems invisible might be fighting battles nobody knows about, and that sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change everything. The following school year brought changes. The principal, impressed by the impact of Marcus's actions, created an official position, community liaison. It came with a small salary increase, and Marcus's job now included not just cleaning the school, but watching out for students who might need extra help. He was given training in recognizing signs of poverty, abuse, and neglect, and how to connect families with resources. But Marcus didn't need much training. He'd been doing this work his whole life, just without a title. The mailbox became famous in its own small way. The local newspaper did a story about it, calling it the mailbox of hope. Donations poured in from community members who wanted to help. A local business owner set up a fund specifically for emergency family housing. A retired teacher started a tutoring program for students who were struggling due to difficult home situations. The ripple effects of one letter, found by one janitor, who chose to act, spread throughout the entire community. Oliver and Alina were at the center of this change, but they weren't the only ones who benefited. Dozens of families found help they didn't know existed. Children who had been suffering in silence found their voices, and a community that had grown disconnected in the digital age found a way to come together again. Marcus continued his work for 3 more years before finally retiring at 7. On his last day, the school held an assembly. Marcus tried to avoid it, saying he didn't like fuss, but the principal insisted. When he walked into the gymnasium, he was stunned to see it packed with students, teachers, parents, and community members. One by one, people stood up to share their stories. A single father talked about how Marcus had noticed his daughter wearing the same clothes every day and quietly arranged for her to receive new ones. A grandmother raising her grandchildren alone spoke about how Marcus had connected her with legal aid to get custody and financial support. Story after story filled the gymnasium, tales of quiet kindness and life-changing help. Then Oliver, now 12 years old and tall for his age, walked to the microphone. His mother stood beside him, looking healthy and happy in her nurse's scrubs, from her new job at the local clinic. 3 years ago, Oliver began, his voice clear and strong. I put a letter in an old mailbox because I didn't know what else to do. I was just a scared kid who loved his mom and didn't want to lose her. Mr. Marcus found that letter, and he didn't just read it. He became our hero. But more than that, he showed all of us what it means to truly see people who are struggling, and to do something about it. Oliver paused, looking directly at Marcus. You taught us that being invisible doesn't mean being worthless. You taught us that everyone deserves dignity and help. You taught us that one person can make a difference, even if that person thinks they're just a janitor. But you were never just a janitor, Mr. Marcus. You were our guardian angel in a brown uniform. The gymnasium erupted in applause. Marcus stood there, tears streaming down his weathered face, as hundreds of people he had helped in ways big and small showed their gratitude. The principal presented him with a plaque, but Marcus barely noticed it. What he saw was the faces of all these children and families whose lives had been touched by simple kindness. What he felt was the weight of Oliver's original letter, which he still carried in his pocket every day, reminding him that sometimes the smallest voice crying for help deserves the biggest response. As the assembly ended and people came up to hug him and shake his hand, Marcus found himself standing with Oliver and Alina. You know, Alina said, wiping tears from her eyes, Oliver's been accepted into the advanced reading program at the middle school. He wants to be a writer. Marcus looked at Oliver with pride. You already are a writer, he said. That first letter you wrote, that was the most important thing anyone's written in this school in all my years here. Oliver smiled. I'm writing a book, he said shyly. It's about a janitor who's secretly a superhero. He doesn't fight bad guys with superpowers. He fights sadness and hunger and loneliness with kindness. Marcus laughed, a deep, warm sound. Sounds like a bestseller to me. Years passed. Marcus enjoyed his retirement, spending time with his grandchildren and tending his small garden. He volunteered at the school occasionally, helping train his replacement, not just in cleaning but in caring. The mailbox program expanded to other schools in the district, with hundreds of children finding help through letters that might otherwise have gone unheard. Oliver went on to high school, where he excelled in English and creative writing. He won essay contests and scholarships, always writing about the power of compassion and the importance of seeing people who society overlooks. His mother Alina became a nurse practitioner and eventually opened a free clinic for families without insurance. She named it the Mailbox Clinic in honor of how their journey to healing began. When Oliver graduated from high school as valedictorian, Marcus was there in the front row, invited his family. In his graduation speech, Oliver talked about the letter that changed his life and the janitor who proved that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes, he said, they wear work boots and carry mops, and they change the world one small act of kindness at a time. The story of the last letter in the mailbox became legend in their small town. Parents told it to their children as proof that asking for help is brave, not weak. Teachers shared it with students who seemed to be struggling. Community leaders used it as an example of how one person's compassion can transform an entire community. Marcus lived to be 81, passing peacefully in his sleep. At his funeral, the church overflowed with people whose lives he had touched. Oliver, now 21 and in college, studying social work and creative writing, gave the eulogy. He spoke about the man who had seen a scared boy's letter and chose to act, who had turned a moment of desperation into a lifetime of hope. He ended with words that would be engraved on Marcus's headstone. He found the invisible and made them seen. He heard the silent and gave them voice. He touched the forgotten and reminded them they mattered. After the funeral, Oliver stood at Marcus's grave with his mother. In his hand was a letter, the last one he would ever put in a mailbox for Marcus to find. He placed it gently on the fresh earth and whispered, "Thank you for everything." The letter read, "Dear Mr. Marcus, they say you can't hear me now, but I think maybe you can. I wanted you to know that I kept my promise. I grew up to be like you, someone who helps people when they need it most. Every day, I look for the invisible people, the ones who are struggling in silence, and when I find them, I remember what you taught me, that everyone deserves dignity, that kindness costs nothing but means everything, and that sometimes all it takes to save a life is to notice someone needs saving. The mailbox at the school is still there. They painted it gold last year and put a plaque on it with your name. Kids still put letters in it, and there's always someone who reads them and helps. Your legacy lives on, in every letter answered, every family helped, every child who learns that they matter. Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible. Thank you for saving us when we were drowning. Thank you for teaching an entire town that the smallest acts of love can create the biggest changes. Until we meet again, Oliver. As Oliver and Alina walked away from the cemetery, the sun broke through the clouds, warming their faces. They walked past the school, where children were playing at recess, their laughter filling the air. The gold mailbox stood proudly by the entrance, a reminder that sometimes the most powerful thing in the world is simply someone who cares enough to read a letter and act on it. The security guard, a young man who had once been one of the kids Marcus helped, nodded to them as they passed. The mailbox had 3 letters this week, he said quietly. All of them are getting help. Oliver smiled. He would be happy to know that. As they continued walking, Alina took her son's hand, just as she had when he was 9, and scared. You know what Marcus told me once, she said. He said that kindness is like a seed. You plant it, without knowing if it will grow, but if you're lucky, it becomes a tree that gives shade to people you'll never meet. They stopped at the apartment complex where they had first lived after leaving their car. It looked the same, maybe, a little more worn. In the window of what had been their apartment, Oliver could see children's drawings taped to the glass. Another family making a home there, another chance for hope to bloom. Mom, Oliver said suddenly, I want to start a foundation. The Marcus Thompson Foundation. For kids who need help but don't know how to ask for it. We'll put mailboxes in every school, train people to watch for signs of struggle, create emergency funds for families in crisis. Alina squeezed his hand. Marcus would love that. They stood there for a moment, mother and son, survivors who had become thrivers, thinking about the janitor who had changed everything with one simple choice to care. That night, Oliver sat at his computer and began to write. Not an essay or a story, but a plan, a blueprint for spreading Marcus's kindness beyond their small town. He wrote about mailboxes and emergency funds, about training programs for school staff, about dignity and respect for families in crisis. He wrote until the sun came up, fueled by memory and purpose. Within a year, the Marcus Thompson Foundation was real. It started small, just 3 schools in nearby towns. But the idea spread like Marcus's kindness had, touching communities that were hungry for connection and compassion. Each school that joined received a gold mailbox and training for staff. Each community created its own network of helpers, people ready to act when a child's letter cried out for help. The foundation's motto, chosen by Oliver, came from something Marcus had said. Every letter matters, every child counts. By the time Oliver graduated from college, the foundation operated in 50 schools across 3 states. He had written a book about Marcus and their story, with all proceeds going to the foundation. The book, titled The Last Letter in the Mailbox, became required reading in many schools, teaching children about empathy, courage, and the power of community action. Oliver often spoke at schools, telling the story of a 9-year-old boy who was scared and hungry, and a 72-year-old janitor who chose to help. He would end each speech the same way. Look around you. See the quiet kids, the tired ones, the ones who seem fine but might be fighting battles you can't imagine. Be like Marcus. Notice them, help them. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness can save a life. I know, because it saved mine. The last scene of this story takes place 25 years after Marcus found that first letter. Oliver, now 34, stands in a school gymnasium filled with people. He's there to dedicate the 500th Marcus Thompson mailbox. His mother, Alina, now runs a network of free clinics. His wife, a teacher he met through the foundation's work, holds their young daughter, whom they named Hope. As Oliver speaks, he pulls out a worn piece of paper from his pocket. It's his original letter, the one Marcus had given back to him years ago, saying, "This belongs to you. It's the beginning of your story." Oliver reads it aloud, his voice steady, despite the tears in his eyes. The room is silent as everyone listens to the words of a frightened child who just wanted someone to know his truth. When he finishes, Oliver looks up at the crowd. This letter, found by a janitor who chose to care, has led to thousands of children finding help, hundreds of families finding homes, and countless acts of kindness that rippled out like waves from a stone thrown in still water. He pauses, then continues. Marcus Thompson taught us that heroes don't always save the world in dramatic ways. Sometimes they save it one person at a time, one letter at a time, one act of kindness at a time. He taught us that everyone has the power to be someone's hero, if only they choose to see and to act. The crowd erupts in applause, but Oliver raises his hand for quiet. "There's one more thing," he says. He walks to the new gold mailbox installed by the gymnasium door. "This mailbox is special. It's made from the original mailbox where I put my letter all those years ago. And today, I want to put a new letter in it." He pulls out an envelope and holds it up. "This letter is for all of you." It says, "Thank you for continuing Marcus's work. Thank you for seeing the invisible. Thank you for being the heroes our children need." The last letter in the mailbox started all of this, but it won't be the last letter that changes a life. Keep reading, keep caring, keep acting. With love and gratitude, Oliver Martinez. As he slides the letter into the mailbox, hundreds of people rise to their feet. The applause echoes through the gymnasium and out into the world, where in schools everywhere, children know that if they need help, they can write a letter. Someone will read it. Someone will care. Someone will act. Because that's what Marcus Thompson taught us all, that the last letter in the mailbox is never really the last. It's just the beginning of another story of hope, kindness, and the extraordinary power of ordinary people choosing to care. The story of the last letter in the mailbox reminds us that heroes walk among us every day. They're the people who notice when someone is struggling. They're the ones who act when action is needed. They're the janitors, the teachers, the neighbors, the strangers who choose to see and to care. If this story touched your heart, remember that you too have the power to be someone's Marcus Thompson. Look for the letters, literal or metaphorical, that people leave when they need help. Read them with compassion. Act with kindness. Change lives with simple gestures of care. Because sometimes, the last letter in the mailbox is actually the first chapter of a beautiful story of hope, resilience, and the transformative power of human kindness. And that story never really ends. It just keeps growing. One act of kindness at a time, one helped child at a time, one saved family at a time, echoing through generations like Marcus's love echoes still in every golden mailbox, waiting for the next letter that will change everything.